it's rare to have a conversation about the city of Ottawa and its cultural sector without the stereotypes of conservative or boring being raised. If these are true, is it possible for exciting, globally relevant art to emerge from the area? And if it isn't true, how else could the character of the city and its visual art be described?
I think every city, whether it be Calgary or Toronto or Ottawa, with the municipal elections that are going on right now, they're multi-layered. And I think there's a conservatism to this city. I think many people have seen it, probably mostly through the federal civil service, who are the key drivers of this economy as the residents of this economy. And the spenders in our communities, they tend to be fairly conservative. They tend to be a little bit scared because they never know every 4 years whether they're going to be sitting in the same house and sitting in the same job. So we do tend to be a conservative community. But I would never say this arts community is conservative. In my experience, and I've lived here all my life, and worked as an artist when I was 20 years old till I was in my mid-30s, and then took an arts administration role. The people I met were the most outrageous, interesting, resourceful people that I've ever met in my life, and that has never changed. I mean, this community is extraordinarily interesting, and it is not a conservative community in the community that I live in. There are a lot of challenges in this community, and I think over the course of the panel we're going to talk about some of those. But I feel that for a city of 1 million people, and we're getting there, we're at 900,000, we're reaching that million point, we need to, I think, assert ourselves more. And I think that my comment that we're under-resourced is that I do believe we've been ignored. I think the professional arts in this community are not well served. I think the amateur arts in the community are very well served. And I think it's time for a little more vocal need to be expressed by the visual arts community. I think we're going to hit a crunch, and I'm worried about this space that we're in tonight. This is not owned by enriched grad artists, and all it takes is a transportation route or a landlord or some other factor to come along, and this building goes up for sale and is sold for condominiums. It's happening right across the city. Try and find a space in the city. In the downtown core right now, to go onto Bank Street, and I know 101 is searching desperately for a new space. It's a $75 to $100 per square foot to rent a space on Bank Street. We're being squeezed out of the downtown core, and that's a concern for me. And I think that is neglect. And we've seen since amalgamation in the city, I believe the city has neglected the professional arts. I think they've built edifices and community galleries, but I don't think they're taking the professional community seriously.
That's weird. Does anybody else want to? Does anybody want to follow up, or should we move on to the next question? I mean, I have a few questions myself that maybe any of you could answer. One is that it seems like it's very typical for artists to be kicked out of the downtown core eventually, and then to have to move and then create something new elsewhere. And I mean, I've seen this happen in every city I've visited or worked in, and I'm wondering, do you think maybe it shouldn't be that way? There's a different way of doing things?
No, in a city of 1 million people, we should have other options. This is a very unique city. You have the federal government owning extraordinary amounts of the downtown core. You have the NCC controlling places like Sussex Drive, and for anybody in the room who remembers, Sussex Drive was an arts hub a few years ago. We had Leahy Booth, we had Saw Gallery, we had Peter Corbett's Gallery, we had Ann Doran Gallery, we had Hibernia Gallery, we had artist studios on the second floor on Sussex, and the rents tripled because the NCC decided this really is about that we want fair market value. I think we have to open a conversation with groups like the NCC. Certainly a report that we've done shows that they've done it in Washington, they do it in Berlin, where the authority, the NCCs of those cities, actually support the local arts. They recognize, you're in a capital city, we're in a very unique situation, and we have to start opening dialogue with some of our federal partners to say, how do creators live and work when there is such a heavy blanket in this community? And I think those conversations have to be opened, and we have to look at some new accommodations for the local arts, or we're all going to have to be moving into suburbia, because that's where the city is placing their money right now. The money is going into the Shankman Arts Center. EBA would not work in Orleans. It's not going to work in Barbados. It's not going to work out in Nepean. It works because artists gravitate to the downtown core, and it's being absolutely squeezed, not just by the economic factors that every city is going through, but because we're a very unique city. And I think we have to open up the dialogue with some of our federal partners to say this is a unique, and not just our federal partners, I think our provincial partners also have to recognize that this city has extraordinary issues that have to be dealt with. And I think it's been ignored for decades.
Thank you.
Are there any models that you see happening in this world that we should look at?
Yes. I won't get into it too much, but some of the research we've been doing on cities, take a look at Helsinki. I mean, there's an extraordinary city that's very similar in size to our city. It's a northern city. It's just extraordinary what their municipal government and their federal government do cooperatively for arts. And I think we're kind of hung up in our granting system, our funding system, on projects. The product. They don't do that in Helsinki. They give you a living wage to be an artist. They allow you to explore your work as a visual artist over the course of the year without the pressure of saying, 18 paintings, you said you were going to create them, I want to see them, put in your final report. That's not the way they fund. And I think it creates a more exciting and dynamic environment for the arts.
Okay, that's great for that question. Thank you.
Do you think, though, that really what's happening is more a reflection? I mean, this is a very small group of people, and we're really feeling and seeing that just what the general population wants. So the general population is not valuing everybody, just like wanting to do this, wanting to fund things more, and wanting to provide. Yeah.
But I don't believe that. I actually believe that when you can present data and information and research that is indisputable, this community is not doing well in terms of accessing dollars from the federal government. $100 million was contributed across this country for endowment funds to cities from St. John to Nanaimo. And $100 million in matching funds for endowments. That's a lot of money. Ottawa got $7,500. And you have to look at that and say, why? And the reason is that we don't have the capacity within the arts organizations in this community to take on those projects, put in a development officer, get out there and do the grants, do all of the incredible amount of data that's required to do that kind of work. We're under-resourced. And if we were better resourced, or we rethink the way we manage the arts in this community, I think that we would be better off. There's a lot of examples of groups across this country. It's a bizarre city in that we're very paternal. We've allowed the city of Ottawa to control our destiny. And it's not that there's not good people at the city of Ottawa. I think the people there are really well-meaning and very good. But it's not the model that's used in Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, London, Kingston. They have arts councils in their city that do the funding. Many of those cities also have a sister organization or another body that does development work, that is able to go out and find matching funds, corporate funds, federal government funds, that can set up things like a reserve fund. Wouldn't it be nice to have a reserve fund for capital projects in this community, build it to 1.5 million, so that when an opportunity comes by, we've got the dollars as a community to go out and grab it? Because real estate, watch real estate in this city over the next few years. I'm very worried that artists are going to get squeezed big time. And I think we just got to start looking at what are our opportunities, what are the things we've got to do, how do we organize ourselves so that we're not lost.
Yeah, thank you.